Now before we all head out and go back to our communities to spread the message of freedom and carry forward the spark of freedom that we've started here in Columbus, please help me welcome to the stage our tremendous field director from Iowa. Amanda Sebastian is a member of our Iowa team who was a leader for us in 2014, who knocked more doors and made more phone calls than just about our entire team across the country. Please welcome Amanda Sebastian to the stage to tell her freedom story.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Amanda Sebastian, and I'm the Grassroots Director for Americans for Prosperity in the state of Iowa. I want to start today by truly thanking each and every one of you for being in this room with me today, because what you are about to witness on this stage, I have absolutely no doubt, will forever be the greatest honor of my entire life. I've been given the incredible honor of introducing all of you to an absolute and true American hero. I love Americans for Prosperity for so many reasons, but I love AFP the most because they have given me this opportunity to share my personal story of why I fight for freedom. This is a story I could not possibly feel more passionately about, and a story I could not possibly be more to share with all of you today. I fight for freedom because I come from a family of extremely patriotic Americans. Both of my grandfathers fought overseas in World War II. One of them had 8 brothers and sisters, all of whom fought overseas in the war effort. When my father was a student in college in the 1960s, he actually chose to withdraw from his school to go volunteer to fight for his country in Vietnam. My father came from a place that taught him that when your country needs you, you stand up and you fight. When my father was deployed overseas, his group of men was tasked with a mission. And in describing that mission to his men, the commanding officer made it extremely apparent what was going to happen here. It became very obvious that whoever went on this mission would not be returning home with the rest. It became very obvious that this would be a mission of sacrifice. The commanding officer told his men he would not have that on his head the rest of his life. He would not assign any one of them to go do this. He would only take a volunteer. So the group of soldiers, they were lined up single file on a mountainside. And the commanding officer, he approached that first soldier in line. That first soldier said, "Sir, I just got married. And I promised my wife I would not do anything stupid. Sir, I am so sorry, but I cannot be the one." The commanding officer approached the second soldier in line, and the second soldier told that commanding officer, "Sir, my wife just gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. I've never even met this little girl. I can't possibly orphan her before she even gets to meet her daddy. Sir, I am so sorry, but I cannot be the one." The commanding officer approached the third soldier in line. The third soldier did not say a word. He just had tears streaming down his face. The third soldier could not be the one. My dad was not the fourth soldier in line. It was not my father's turn. And yet after soldier number 3, my dad stepped forward. And he said, "You know what, guys? I got this. My dad was engaged to my mom at the time, but he was not married and he did not have kids, and he thought that was really, really important. So my dad, he jumped on the bulldozer. The situation was you had to jump on a bulldozer, you had to take it down a mountainside. You had to take that into a valley, and in that valley there was a transportation route that had been bombed and covered in debris. That transportation route needed to be opened to provide food, water, and ammunition to the troops up north. The problem was, on the other side of that valley, there was a line of trees. It was a very dense jungle. And we knew for absolute certain that the Viet Cong were completely full in those trees. We knew for absolute certain that they would ambush whoever it was that chose to go do this. We had a group of Marines perched up on top of that mountainside, ready to provide cover and support to whoever chose to do this. So my father, he jumped in that bulldozer, he went down the mountainside, he went into the valley, and he began to clear the debris. My dad worked for several minutes without incident. And after those first few minutes, he thought, you know what? Maybe I'm going to be okay. Maybe everything's going to be okay after all. About that time, he saw the tripwire directly in front of his bulldozer. He immediately threw that bulldozer into reverse, but if you know anything about a bulldozer, you know you're not going anywhere fast. You're going to go 3 to 4 miles an hour. So my dad, he threw that bulldozer into reverse and he looked to that line of trees. And in that line of trees was the man that was about to kill my father. In that line of trees, there was a Viet Cong soldier with a rocket launcher mounted on top of his shoulder, aimed and ready to fire. Back then, a bulldozer was set up where the seat was mounted directly on top of the fuel tank. Where do you think that rocket's about to hit? Murphy's Law, right? That thing's going right for the fuel tank. That Viet Cong soldier, he sent that rocket. Boom. Massive, massive explosion. The Marines perched on top of that hillside, they do not come down. They know that there is absolutely no possible way that anyone could possibly survive an explosion of that magnitude. They know that this is now a recovery operation. In that moment, my father's body was thrown in the cab of that bulldozer and his head hit the roof of the cab, and everything went to black for my dad. My dad's first thought was, I'm dead. But he only thought that for a few seconds, because then he realized that he was in way, way too much pain to be dead. My dad's second thought was, dang it. Dang it, I didn't die right away. This is now going to be slow, and this is now going to be painful. I wish if it was going to happen, this would have been instantaneous. My dad then decided that he needed to see what he was working with and assess his injuries. He knew that his face was gone and that parts of his head were missing, but he did not know how much. So my dad, he took his left hand and he started on the right side of his face, and he started to slowly pat all the way around his face to see what was there and to see what was going. My dad, he got to the left side of his face and he was ecstatic. My dad was so excited because his whole face was there. He was so excited he couldn't believe it, and he looked down at his legs and they were practically gone. My dad's a big guy and he's got these huge hands. And he said he could make a fist and stick it all the way through his legs without touching anything. My dad was a sitting duck and he could not move. The problem was he should have never moved, because the Marines perched on top of that mountainside, they can't see that he's moving. But guess who can? Those Viet Cong soldiers in the tree line, they can. So what do? They take out their machine guns, they raise them, they aim them, and they begin to fire upon my father. He immediately takes a round in the left arm, and then he continues to hear the ping, 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 as the bullets continue to bounce off the metal of his bulldozer. He knows that he has just a few seconds before they hit his heart or his head, and that these will be the very last moments of his life. About that time, one of my dad's buddies came down the mountainside on his own bulldozer. He jumped off of it, he ran to my father, he grabbed him by the shoulder and dragged his mangled legs down that bulldozer through a puddle of oil and fuel that was ready to explode. He dragged my dad behind a large boulder, and in that moment, he saved my father's life. Long story short, eventually a medevac helicopter came and picked up my father and took him to what was gloriously called a field hospital. But in all reality, it was just a corpsman with a scalpel and some scissors, but absolutely no anesthesia and absolutely no painkiller. They began to cut on my dad's legs by giving him nothing but a stick to bite on as he was laid on 2 50-gallon drums. In surgery, the corpsman said to my dad, "Kid, I'm so sorry, but I have to amputate." My dad said, "No, no, no. No, please do not take my legs. Please do not do that." The corpsman said, "Kid, I'm so sorry, but there is nothing left to work with. And what there is will get infection, it will get gangrene, and you will lose more than just your legs. I'm so sorry, but there's nothing else that I can do." My dad asked for a pen and paper. And he wrote my mom a letter. In that letter he said, "Jan, I love you so much, but unfortunately I have to call off our engagement." In my dad's very non-PC words of the 1960s, he said, "Jan, I love you, but I will not have you married to a cripple." My dad wanted the best life for my mom, and he never, ever wanted to be a burden. My mom eventually got that letter and was all sorts of angry, because she was going to marry this guy no matter what parts and pieces he did not come home with. But a long story short, my dad's a pretty stubborn guy. And he tried some experimental drugs and experimental therapies that could have gone really, really badly for him. And he could have lost a lot more than just his legs. But in the end, my dad was able to keep both of his legs. And the really, really, really cool part about this story is that my dad was one of the top door knockers for Americans for Prosperity this last cycle. He would wear the same thing. He would wear his Vietnam veteran's hat with his Purple Heart and his medals clipped to it. He would wear his Vietnam Memorial t-shirt with the names of all the guys who gave far more than he. Because my dad will never, ever forget those guys. And he would wear shorts because it was hot, that would unintentionally show the scars of his sacrifice. My dad has been in pain in his legs every single day since September 8th, 1968. But my dad would walk all day on a Saturday for us. My dad would walk for miles. and my dad would walk for hours, and his legs would absolutely kill him. But my dad was so proud to door knock for Americans for Prosperity because he truly believed that we were giving him the opportunity to fight for his country again. My dad is why I fight. I love so many parts about that story. I love that my dad was able to keep his life. I love that my dad was able to keep his legs. I love that my dad is now able to use those legs to continue to fight. But my absolute favorite part about that story is that my dad is in this room with us today, and he had absolutely no idea that I would be speaking. So at this time, I would like to welcome my dad, my hero, an absolute American hero, Sebastian, to the stage. Dad, welcome home.